Welcome back to Beyond the Wrench. My name is Jay Goninen, and I am your host. Today, we welcome Jason Garfoot from 3M Collision. Jason is the newly appointed Global Portfolio Manager at 3M and has done some pretty amazing things throughout the course of his career. This is also the second part of our 3M podcast, where we had rmarrinan on earlier, and a lot of really, really good content came out of that. This will pair up on top of that, and I think we'll get a lot of really, really good stuff out of it. So welcome to the show, Jason.
Thanks. Yeah, happy to be here. And sorry you had to listen to Ryan for an hour. I hope it went okay.
Ryan had some subtle jabs at the end, knowing that this podcast was coming. When we were doing the podcast intro, that was one of the more fun intros I think I've ever had. Just the jabbing and good-hearted nature. You can tell that the two of you are close, and it was a lot of fun. I'm sure this will be equally as fun. If not, since I'm doing this one second, I can say maybe it'll even be a little bit better.
Perfect. Yeah. Yep. That's my goal. Yep. Just to be slightly better than Ryan at all times is perfect.
All right. Well, you are newly appointed, as I mentioned, to this global portfolio manager role. What does that mean?
Yeah. So previously at 3M, I was exclusively on the technical side. Like Ryan, I ran training, but on the paint side, where Ryan kind of runs the body side along with Sean Collins. So it's been in the works for a while. Today was officially the first day, but yeah, now I'm the global portfolio manager for all paint application systems at 3M. So basically it means I'll have a lot to say in what new products are going to hit the market, how they hit the market, what new products will be developed. I'll have a little bit of say, I think, with pricing. I don't know where that's all going yet. But I'm really excited to sort of analyze the other markets through the entire world. I've looked at the US and Canada and Latin America quite a bit and Europe for a long time, but there's a lot of other areas that I've never touched. So I'm excited to meet new people and see how our beautiful industry works in different parts of the world. So I'm really, really excited for that.
Where do you even start in a role like that? I'm guessing some of it is just getting a general familiarity with the world.
Yeah, I mean, we're positioned well to the standpoint of we have our area portfolio marketers. So we have a dedicated person in every one of those individual markets. So where I'll kind of kick things off is working with all of them on an individual basis to understand their markets a little bit more and how they differ from the US, which is obviously kind of where my sweet spot is growing up in the industry here. But yeah, it'll be interesting to hear their perspective, and then eventually here in another month or two, I'll start traveling to some of those markets to actually visit customers, both small scale and sort of large MSO throughout the world, just to see how different they are. So if I can truly and hopefully understand them, I want to make sure we're bringing them products and understanding challenges that they face in their world versus what I'm used to here.
Do you have any idea of any of the trips that you'll be taking? I mean, that's got to be pretty exciting in and of itself.
It is, yeah. It sounds like probably Australia, probably Asia a little bit, and definitely Latin America to start things off. I've been in Latin America quite a few times with previous companies, but it was usually really big customers that I worked with there. So it'll be nice to sort of see a different side of those markets. So your sort of average body shop, all the way up to your mid to even large size MSO. Down, especially in like Mexico and things like that, there's a lot of larger corporate run body shops. Like Mazda has their own body shops down there that are massive, almost warehouse style body shops. So very systemized, very productive, but it'll be very interesting to see sort of the flip side of that.
So I'm guessing when you got into the industry, your goal probably wasn't to be a global portfolio manager. What was it that brought you into the industry?
Yeah, so weirdly enough, what got me interested and into the industry was the TV shows I used to watch as a kid. So my Saturday and Sunday mornings were usually spent watching, well, now it's Motor Trend and whatever else, but a lot of it used to be on Discovery Channel. And one of the big shows that got me into the industry was a show called American Chopper, if you remember
Oh
that one.
yeah, love that show. I was a diehard too. Yeah.
Yep. Yep, I saw that, and and instantly I figured everything out. It's like, that's what I'm going to do with my life. I want to paint custom motorcycles. I've always been interested in the custom paint side. Fabrication side was really cool too, but the paint side is definitely where my interests lied. So like all super smart teenagers do, I immediately started my custom paint business like the next week, which basically meant I had a bunch of my friends give me the motorcycle helmets, and I used really bad tape that I could buy at the gas station and whatever aerosol cans I could find to spray bomb their helmets. Not my proudest moment, probably looking back at that stuff. But it was cool because obviously I made a lot of mistakes. I was humble enough to realize my stuff was not looking like what I was seeing on TV. So I wanted to learn how can I get better at this? What information is out there and how can I learn? So I started going to the library and renting and finding whatever books that I could. I mean, the internet isn't what it was today. I mean, the YouTube channels and everything else where you can learn anything you'd ever want to learn did not exist. So it was a lot of just watching those shows, looking for books, and then eventually going to tech school. So I knew I was going to go to college as well, a four-year university. But my brother was a little bit older than me, and I watched him kind of work at McDonald's and stuff like that when he went to college. And I was like, well, if I could get this body shop stuff done first and go to tech school for collision, then maybe I could have a different job going into my college career. And that's kind of what happened. And by the end of my college career, I had already worked myself up to a lead paint position in a body shop, which I absolutely loved. So I made my parents incredibly proud, and with my education at the university, I went right back to work in the body shop after graduation. So they weren't very excited about that, I don't think, but I think they're a little more proud today when they see kind of what came from it. But
It's
yeah, it was
cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to get that exposure, and Ryan and I actually talked about that a little bit too, and in how getting visibility to the cool parts about our industry was so impactful and important to us at an early stage. His was more from a friend and mentor. Yours is more from what you saw on television.
Hmm.
But you couldn't help. I mean, you think back to like early days Orange County Choppers and really the cool stuff that they were putting out, and the fact that they were actually showing off the fabrication side of the business. They were showing off
Hmm.
the paint side of the business, and I think in a way that just made it look different. And at some level, I feel like we almost miss out on that a little bit right now, just because both TV and YouTube and whatever have gotten uh, so packed with good content and good
Hmm.
shows that it's hard to stick out in that realm. But you know what? I look at the way my nephew views or some of my cousins view kind of TV, right? And a lot of them aren't watching traditional TV shows. They are on
Right.
YouTube and going that route. So, you know, even some of the content that you at 3M are starting to put out now too, or not starting to, have been putting out,
Hmm.
that could appeal to a young Jason Garfoot when you're trying
Right.
to, trying to paint that helmet. You know, I just think there's so much more content readily available if you can find it.
Yeah, that's a great point if you can find it. I mean, there's good and bad with all of it. The good thing is anything you want to learn, you really have the power to do that now, no matter your circumstances. The downside is because people can get so hyper focused, they may miss out on things because they don't get as diversified. They pick early on what they want to do and that's what they go with. Where for me, I never would have been in the seat I am if there was 150 different shows to watch Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock or whatever it was. It's of my pick. That was the coolest one, and a few of my friends were talking about it, so I watched it, and that's guided my entire life since then, essentially. So it's good and bad, yeah, but it's a fun industry. I mean, I will say that. And once you know what you want to do, the openness that comes from companies like 3M and even some of the artists on the custom paint side is amazing. People used to protect all that stuff, especially on the custom paint side. If they learned a new trick or a cool way to do something, they would very much hide that. So they owned it, and the only place to get it done was to go to them. And there was no other way to really learn it except through trial and error. Where now it's because of, I think maybe the ads and stuff that they get and the views of people watching their content, they can actually make decent money. They're willing to actually open up now those secrets and teach people for free, essentially. And it's been amazing to watch. The people Ryan and I have come through our classes, just the sort of the breadth of knowledge they have now coming into those is significantly different than it would have been before all of that stuff was available, for sure.
Boy, is that a good point. And I do want to touch on something that I'm kind of a fan of, your approach and how you approach school in the first place, because you did go get that technical knowledge and then moved on to a 4-year afterwards. And I think when you did that, I have to imagine that helped you actually be able to develop a skill while then you're also going back to school for more of the general education or the business education, but being able to like go back and have something that you're actually passionate about, and then getting the education that could open doors for you as you kind of make your way through the industry. That had to have maybe even more of a profound impact than you even thought at the time, right? Because then you've tied that technical skill with that formal education that can really lead to a lot of great things.
Yeah, exactly. That was, I mean, when I went to college, it was one of those things you were just kind of expected to do. You weren't really, I would say tech school wasn't really thought of, or vocational school, as a way to actually make a significant amount of money. We were told you have to go to a 4-year college. That's the only way to really get a really sort of lifelong career where you can continue to build on it and kind of achieve those goals that everybody sets out for, of the white picket fence and the big house and all that kind of stuff. So I went to tech school first as to sort of build those base skills, but really to sort of help with that hobby, or my true passion, and make me better at that. And it turned out that that base education that I got at vocational school was probably more impactful than any other education I had. I was very fortunate to have a first year teacher. I think the old teacher that was there, he retired the year before, and he was very well thought of in the industry. But I had a younger teacher who decided to take kind of a different approach from his background. And that's stuck with me to this day. I had an opportunity to go back and speak at one of the graduations at that tech school last year. And when I was there, that's where it was nice to kind of thank him, for what I told him, and what I kind of told everybody in my speech there is he really kind of taught me to learn. And I think before going to that and then going to a 4-year school without that base knowledge that he gave me, it would have turned out very, very differently. I think a lot of people get lost when they start out going to a 4-year school, because there's so many different directions you're pulled all at once. And with all the different general classes you have, you may end up getting completely pulled out of your interest into an area you hadn't really seen before. But it was nice to have that base knowledge and something I was very, very passionate about. And he did just an amazing job sort of connecting with every student in that class and really sort of build that internal fire for knowledge and always wanting to learn more. So when I got to university, then I really took full advantage, and anything I was interested in, I really dove deep in and really utilized the time I was there to make myself, I guess, more marketable, you would say, looking back now. But it was really being able to identify all these different interests and being able to learn as much as I could about everything that I could get my hands on.
I feel like that's the underrated part of a great teacher, is their ability to connect with their students. And I know over my time, and I'll go back to more of the repair side from my end, where I struggled with electrical theory for a long time and trying to understand electricity. And then all of a sudden I just had one teacher that said it a different way, and all of a sudden it clicked. And he was probably saying the same information or telling the same information as every other teacher, but because he brought it in a relatable sense and something that just maybe broke it down to where it was so simple and not intimidating, to where all of a sudden it just clicks. And I think you see that a lot with younger people right now, especially, where if you're able to get to that point to where it clicks with them, you might have changed their life, because similar to what you said, it might not just be that one technical thing. It might be opening their mind to learning how to learn in general.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of oddly enough, the philosophy of the four of us that were training together at 3M. And it wasn't something we planned. I think we all had a mentor like that, or a teacher that really opened up our mind that way. And so we sort of take that same approach with every class that we have there. So we'll have very different skill levels of technicians, experience levels as well. There's people that have been in the shop for a week, and then there's people that have been in the shop for 15 years coming to these classes together. So always making sure we find a way to reach everybody and make sure we're teaching things in a way where everyone can understand is important. And I think we do, even Ryan, I think, does a good job of that. Don't tell him I said that, but but yeah, he does a wonderful job of reading the room. And we talk to every student individually whenever we can to make sure they're understanding what we're talking about. And if we have to go back and talk about some more remedial things, we make sure to do it in a way that someone that's been in the industry for 20 years can also learn from it, or get them to even help teach the students. So students hearing it from another technician or a peer in their field, it seems to be more impactful and a lot of times more believable, where they can say, yeah, I learned that same thing about 3 years ago and I started doing it, and these are kind of the results that I've seen, and this is how it's made my job easier and more productive. Those are very rewarding moments. And those people get their contact information, and we've heard feedback from a lot of classes where those people are still in touch a year after they've been in class together, where they'll start a little social media group chat and they'll send pictures of what they're working on and give each other little tips and tricks. And it's just really cool to see those connections in the industry.
And essentially, when you're talking about that, whether it's the social media side or whichever side it might be, you're in effect having the same impact that you did watching that TV show, right? Because you are seeing maybe that experienced tech be able to showcase a little bit of what they're able to do, and do it in a light that might be different than what the general noise of social media is. I know that's one of the common complaints that I've got about our industry, is that a lot of times you're only hearing from the negative side of, somebody's outlook on the industry. And there's so many cool things and so many cool people in our industry that frankly don't get enough of that attention thrown their way, because they're overshadowed by some of this negativity. But when you
Mhm.
show something like that, man, what an impact that has to a young person.
Yeah, absolutely. You see people get inspired all the time, and similar to me in that American Chopper show, it's different now with the younger technicians that come through our classes. It's much less from a show. It's, oh, have you seen this person on Instagram, or have you seen what this person is doing on Facebook? So it's cool that that inspiration continues to happen, and that there's new channels available for people to view that content. It's an exciting time in our industry for sure.
Well, and I look and I talked to Ryan about this as well, but I'm a geek for YouTube myself now, right? My wife will come downstairs and I'll have YouTube on the TV, and watching somebody rebuild a car. Or my latest thing is that I am just fascinated with tool storage for whatever reason. So I've been watching all these videos, and she'll come down and just say, "Oh my goodness, you're a nerd." And I'm like, "Yes, I love this stuff." This is, I don't know why I keep watching it, but I was going through your YouTube channel at 3M on the collision side, and there is some insanely good content out there. Some really, really good opportunities to be able to learn about whatever you want to learn out there.
Yeah, thanks. We work hard on that stuff. If you ever get surveys from us, be sure to fill that out. The reason we send that stuff out is so we can find out questions that people have, things that they want to learn, things that they may be struggling with in their shops. And then all that content is free. I mean, we're trying to do that to better the industry, because Ryan and myself have been in that position where you're a tech that's struggling with something and you can't find the answer. So if we can help you with any of that stuff, we're always more than happy to. So make sure you comment on that stuff and provide your questions, and that really helps steer the content that we'll develop in the future. And especially now with technology constantly changing, And on the paint side, paint getting way more technical than we could have ever imagined in the industry. The more feedback we get from the people viewing that stuff, the better our content will ultimately be and the more applicable to their everyday struggles that they're dealing with.
And I also feel there's some level of the reputation helps you believe that it's good content, right? I think one of the struggles that some folks have is when you're searching for a very specific thing, you might run across Jimmy in his garage that's, showing you how to paint, right? And it's probably
Hmm.
not the most accurate, or just based on the setup. And no offense to that person, because they're putting out probably pretty good content. But when you're learning and truly trying to educate yourself, I do think it's important to make sure you get that information from reputable sources.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. Not all the people on social media are doing things the right way. But so take everything with a grain of salt. You won't learn how to do things the right way, but you may learn how not to do things, which is good too. But yeah, always look at your sources. And what I always tell people is, regardless of who you're listening to, even if you're watching one of my videos, things change so quickly now. Always make sure, so on the paint side, whatever paint line you're using, always make sure you refer back to whatever tech data sheets you can get your hands on. Make sure that they're current, because what we say today may not be true in a month or even a week from now. We did a webinar with OEC, pulling repair procedures and looking at different things. And we had them pull some statistics for us, and it was over the last year, there was 60,000 updates to repair procedures from the OEMs.
Ooh.
So it's important to stay up to date. Don't get all of your information from social media. Make sure you're checking those systems in your shops to make sure that you're staying current and doing safe repairs.
Yeah, 60,000. That is impossible to stay on top of.
Yeah, it's you anymore. You need some kind of software data management even to stay current, which is also exciting. I mean, it's providing a lot more jobs in our industry that did not exist even 5 years ago, with all the calibration and everything else coming in, and just the more sort of research based every technician needs to be. In that same webinar, we talked about some of the new things coming out in paint, which is insane. We have to check mill thickness of everything we spray now. If you're even 1 or 2 mils above what an OEM is calling out, we may be affecting the way that some of the new ADAS systems calibrate. So we could be held liable for repair just by spraying a color on it. Even Nissan Ariya, on that vehicle specifically, they had a new position statement that came out that it breaks down every single paint company's paint line and what colors you can and cannot spray over the front and rear bumper of that vehicle due to the ADAS that's in it. It's the first of its kind that we've seen on the paint side, and I would only expect more and more of that as more of these new models come out with self-driving capabilities and the more advanced safety systems.
So are you looking at that from the OEM procedure on the vehicle specifically? Because I can't imagine from the paint side that you're able to be able to call that out, or, when you're referring to the ADAS side of it, obviously every vehicle is different, or every
Mhm.
manufacturer at least. It's probably more so making sure that you're compliant with the OEM's procedure for that.
Exactly. Yeah. The paint companies do what they can, but they're limited. I mean, they're getting that information the same time we are as technicians. So Exalta, I believe PPG, BASF, a lot of them have sort of safeties built into the mixing software. When you pull a color code before you mix it, it will tell you this is a radar sensitive formula. Be sure to check your OEM repair procedure to make sure that you can spray this color, which is new. Last year I didn't see that at all. So they're updating as much as they can, but the paint process has very much become something that needs to be looked at during repair planning now. We need to pull all paint procedures. We need to look at those ADAS sensitive areas. So especially front and rear hits, we need to be checking those parts from the OEM side to make sure we're even allowed to spray or repair them.
I'm sure at some level that can almost feel overwhelming if you're in the technician's shoes, right? But at the same time, if you have a proper process down in terms of how you're approaching a repair, I feel like that should cover most everything, right? Because if you're following the proper process from the OE side, maybe even in how you're putting together your game plan ahead of time, you should be able to feel pretty organized and maybe take away some of that overwhelm that you might experience just in hearing this information, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately, we would hope that this stuff hits the technicians less and less. What we've seen in body shops over the last, say, 10 years is that the trend used to be you'd have maybe 4 or 5 technicians to one person up in the front office. Now that's become very much a 1-to-1 ratio, or even heavier on the front side versus technicians in the shop. So it takes time to research a lot of those different procedures to make sure we're doing a safe repair, which again, on the plus side, has offered new jobs to our industry that we haven't seen before. And insurance companies are coming around. There's a lot of times people are getting paid to research those repair procedures. So it's not just a cost that the shop has to eat. So they can still remain profitable even though these jobs are getting more and more technical. But yeah, ideally, every shop would have a few people that are researching these OEM procedures for every single vehicle that's coming through the shop before a technician ever puts their hands on it, to alleviate some of that stress and make sure they're removing any liability that the shop could incur by doing something wrong.
Just wild how much the industry has changed, right? I think when we were growing up in the industry, I don't know that you would anticipate this level of change. It is
No.
pretty crazy, but I do think, to your point, there's a lot of positive out of that in the opportunities that are available in the future for people that come into this industry. And maybe it's even appealing to a skill set that wouldn't have traditionally come into this industry. So I do think there's a lot of appeal to that. How do you see that impacting our industry as a whole? I mean, is it becoming a more attractive industry to come into? Is it maybe something where we have more selling points to come into our industry now than maybe we did in the past?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the best parts of it is the body shop was always seen as sort of this dark, dingy place, and not a great job. Where if you walk into any of the modern body shops today, it's a whole different experience. They're very customer facing now. So they want a customer to feel comfortable having their vehicle repaired in that shop. Employers have become much more conscious of they need to take care of their employees because there has been a technician shortage. So they've made it a much cleaner, brighter, safer place to work. And the income potential now in our industry is higher than it's ever been. You used to have to decide, it's do I want to make money, or do I want to work in a career that I'm passionate about and get to turn wrenches every day and work on cars, but maybe not have the income that I hoped I would have one day. And that's not the case anymore. If you're an open-minded technician that does things the right way and really takes time to tune your craft and stay plugged in to the information coming into a body shop, you can go anywhere you want now and make significant income. And the outlook is only continuing to look exponentially up. I mean, the future is very, very bright, especially for younger people getting into this field. There's going to be jobs in 2 to 5 years that don't exist right now. And if you're specialized and willing to learn those things, you can really, really make a lot of money.
Well, and if you get that base level of knowledge, I talk about this a lot, but that opens up your opportunities so much, because if you have at least that base level of technical knowledge, and that was my experience growing up in the industry too. I don't know that I was fully aware of the opportunities that were actually out there, beyond, just myself working in a shop, working on cars. And then as you start to get more of a feel for the industry and kind of the broader picture of the industry, that there are a lot of opportunities in a lot of different ways that your career can go. It's not, if you start off painting, and there's so many, like, and even that, like, as I say that, it's almost like I'm saying that in a negative, that staying in a shop and painting would be a bad thing. Like, there are so many people that are so crazy talented at it. And I have
Hmm.
friends that are painters that we talk about flexible schedules and how going through COVID and a lot of people in shops would see everybody staying home and working whenever they wanted to. And at some level, I'm starting to see more flexibility in schedules on the paint side as well, and being able to paint maybe at off hours in the shop, or
Hmm.
doing some different things that maybe we didn't think were realistic 5 years ago. Right? A lot has
Hmm.
changed.
Yeah, yeah, it's constantly evolving. And that's, I mean, the nice thing about technology and social media and everything else is it's sort of grouped all these different industries together in a sense that, so if you look at the average customer of a body shop, um, for you as a shop owner to win that customer over a competitor, you have to provide a better customer experience than that shop does, right? Or make them feel safer, or something along those lines. But now, because everything is out in the open and everything gets reviewed and everything's on social media, you're no longer competing against another body shop. It's, as a body shop owner, you're competing against Amazon for a better customer experience. You're competing with whatever great restaurant somebody wrote a review on. So people are expecting that same sort of customer service everywhere that they go. And as a technician, that's wonderful in a body shop because we're getting these very, very nice places to work. Some shop owners are going above and beyond. There was a shop I worked with out in Montana where they put a daycare facility inside of their shop. It's a really big shop. They put a gym that anyone who worked at the shop could come use, and it was an impressive gym. It wasn't just a few old engine blocks welded to a pipe that they could lift in the corner. It was a full like CrossFit gym and everything else, and it's really amazing what's happening. So it's, the more I think exposure our industry gets out there, and people see the way that it's changing, the more attractive this field is going to be for people to get into.
Absolutely. And I think it's taken some visionaries in our industry to come up with stuff like that, right? And I think in the past, when you heard about benefits like that, you would only think of a major company, a huge company, or maybe a tech company that would come up
Hmm.
with some of those creative benefits. But we're seeing it more and more now at the individual shop level, where some shops are coming up with some great benefits that maybe you wouldn't have traditionally thought we would have. But on top of that, just the quality of equipment we're using, whether it's PPE equipment, ventilation, just lighting, right? Like lighting
Hmm.
was such a problem for so long, and now you walk into some of these shops and they look like spaceships.
Yeah. 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 I see mixed rooms that look like the clean room, like in an operating hospital where people are scrubbing down and putting their paint suits on and jobs are coming out unbelievably clean, which just helps speed up production. But throughout the whole shop, it's progressively getting better. And there was a lot that was OEM driven as well. So I know a lot of the OEMs, to get on their program as a certified repair facility, you had to meet certain equipment requirements. And that really helped our industry as well. I remember with Hondas, one of the big things in theirs was lighting that people were failing. So they had certain light level requirements, not just in the shop as a whole, but they had requirements for the paint booth, for the mixing room, for the detail area, for the work bays. So it kind of, in the right way, forced body shops to really kind of step their game up and just make it an better environment to work in. Not just for the technicians, but for quality. It's just the benefit for technicians is that nice little side effect of them making themselves more marketable for the OEMs. It made a much better environment for us to work in.
Well, and as crazy as it sounds to somebody outside our industry, that lighting would make that much of an impact. Go work in a shop with bad lighting. It is impossible, right? It's impossible to see anything. And if you can't see it, how do you assure that there's going to be any level of quality to it? And, I think it's such again, an underrated part of having a great shop is the lighting, because there's nothing more frustrating than trying to work on something you can't see.
Yeah, lighting and even just the quality of the tools, like you said. We see a lot of like vacuum sanding systems, where those used to be really cumbersome and not many shops would use them, to now they're way more usable. There's a lot of different brands out there, not even ours, and they all work pretty well, which means it's a cleaner environment, which means the lights stay bright longer. They're not getting covered with that huge, thick gray dust that they used to. Paint booths have gotten significantly better with much better lighting, and it's a much safer environment for technicians to spray in. We've seen a huge uptick in the quality and the amount of PPE that's being provided to technicians so their career can last longer. So all of that stuff, again, just makes it so much more attractive for people to get into today. You don't know where this road is going to take you. It's definitely not where I thought I would be in my career right now versus when I first went to tech school to learn more about something I was passionate about.
And that's really cool. And I do think with all of the changes that you're talking about, that those are the things that can give us confidence when we do go talk to young people that it is actually a good industry to come into. Like, I think in a lot of ways, in prior generations, maybe we would say it, but not necessarily believe it. You know, when we'd say that, hey, this isn't as dirty of a job as you remember, or this isn't what your parents saw when they were, you know, maybe spent some time working in a body shop or a general repair shop. Things have certainly changed. And I think the standard to which our industry holds itself to now is really good. And we can confidently go in and say that it has changed over the years. And not only has it changed, but companies like 3M that bring that innovative piece to the industry, you constantly see that change for the better. And, you know, we're getting there. I don't think we're where we all want to be quite yet, but my goodness, the improvement that we've seen in the industry in the last decade is literally like night and day just because of the lighting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, it is getting better exponentially. The future has, yeah, it's never been brighter, and I would expect it to just continue to evolve that way. Especially the new sort of computerized systems that we need to learn how to run, to even pre and post scan a vehicle, how to measure them properly. These are areas in the shop that didn't exist before, like having a calibration station. And now you need a person to run that station and learn how to calibrate a vehicle properly. So, I mean, that job in the shop, you're not even getting that dirty anymore. I mean, it's a very clean environment at that stage of the repair. And again, it's something that just didn't exist before. I'm curious to see in 10 years what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
Seeing some of the shops over in Europe, and they're doing things that we don't do here. They're even way more environmentally forward there. We always kind of fall a little bit behind in the US, but we've seen over there the last year or so, there's body shops that actually are getting paid from insurance companies to lower their carbon footprint, and be more efficient, which we've never seen that before. So I always like to look to Europe to see what the future is going to look like here. They tend to always be a little bit ahead of us. And the things that are going on over there are pretty amazing. The automated mixing machines and all the stuff that's coming here, and what they're going to be developing in the future is really, really exciting.
We had a guy by the name of Jay Marazzo on the podcast, and he works with a lot of dealerships on the consulting side and had spent a fair amount of time in dealerships all over the world. And some of the stuff that he had told me was incredibly surprising. He had made some visits to dealerships in Mexico and had sent me photos from the dealerships in Mexico, and it blew me away how organized and clean they were, right? Like it was something that even in the fanciest dealerships that we see in the US, I mean, I think these folks would have put us to shame in that regard, right? And so I think we're evolving, but to your point, being able to see the way other countries operate, and Europe has been a leader in a lot of this forever, and hopefully being able to take what we're learning over there and apply it to what we see in the US, and not being proud enough to say, hey, we can't learn anything from those folks. Like we can learn a lot. We can really, really improve our operations if we just open our eyes.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And that's if I could give any advice that would hopefully stick with a younger technician, it would be just stay open-minded. As good of a painter as I became, and I started from these horrible, humble beginnings to eventually I got to work with and on some of those TV shows that I used to watch as a kid. I became very well known as a very high level painter in the industry, working with all the paint companies and everything else. And it any trip I take to body shops, I learn something new that I never thought of before. And it's not always from a technician that's been in the industry for 30 years. I'll see, a kid that's a year out of tech school that's thought of a new way to do something that nobody's thought of before. And it's very impactful, and it's something that you can take to the world, like within a year, where all of a sudden you'll see everybody else doing that thing. We have the tendency in the US to get very closed off as we're number one, we do things right. There's no reason to look outward. And the more open-minded you can be, the more successful you ultimately will be. It's interesting working on the paint side of the industry, how many shops in the US I'll go to that are still using solvent-based paint, which is fine. Solvent still works phenomenally well, but I'll ask them why they use solvent, and some have very legitimate answers to that. But the one that always gets me is there'll be people that'll say, "Oh, that waterborne thing that'll never catch on." And it's like, well, almost 100% of the rest of the world has been on only waterborne for years and years and years. 100% of Canada, almost 100% of Europe, 100% of California, most of Utah, most of the Great Lakes states. But if we don't look outwards and we stay in our own little world and only kind of listen to what people around us are saying, we may never use the things that are actually better and make our job significantly easier. So stay open-minded, learn from everyone that's out there, whether they're doing it good or bad. If you can't learn the right way, you'll at least learn how not to do it. So always stay plugged in, and yeah, stay open-minded and use social media to your advantage. That's another big thing is even if you're in the US, you can see what they're doing over in Europe just by following different people. I know at 3M, we've gotten very plugged in with some influencers throughout the US and the world now, where we haven't really looked before. And the things they're doing aren't exactly the same in the US. There's this cool guy I started watching, the French painter, he's called, and they do
I've
things
not watched that
differently.
one.
Yeah, it's a good one. You can follow him on Instagram. And in the US, it's funny because I'll pull up some clips of the way he does certain things, especially his masking techniques are just phenomenal. And the response I'll get sometimes in the US is, "Oh, well, why didn't he take out the door handle? He left it in and he masked it up." Well, it's in Europe, things are different, but it's like we're missing the point. It's look at the care and the precision that he takes into everything that he does. So ignore the specifics of what he's doing and pay more attention to the process and the care that this guy has for his job because it is impressive.
Technicians, have you checked out WrenchWay yet? WrenchWay is a free online community for automotive and diesel professionals. Whether you're looking for a job or not, WrenchWay makes it easy to explore new opportunities, stay up to date on what's going on in the automotive and diesel communities in your area, and helps improve and promote the technician profession. Check out all of the job details you care about before you apply or interview with WrenchWay Top Shops. Details like photos of the shop and answers to the questions you actually care about instead of the same old copy and paste job description you see everywhere else. Open to new job opportunities but don't want to apply yet? Create an anonymous reverse job post and let shops reach out to you and see what's going on with the industry in your area through WrenchWay's Shop Talk. Join the WrenchWay online community for free by visiting wrenchway.com or by downloading the WrenchWay mobile app. Link is in the show notes. One of the things that comes to mind for me is that in my conversations with all of you folks at 3M, I feel like you all kind of have that ability to kind of see the bigger picture, and maybe, obviously 3M, very innovative company. There's a lot of stories and books that include practices from 3M in them. Is that something that is kind of it maybe had an impact on your life in terms of how they approach their products, their business, and really how they go about business in general? Because it from an outsider's perspective, it is incredibly impressive.
Yeah, I mean there's obviously good and bad with everything. But the good at 3M is great. And that's what really attracted me to 3M as a company was not all the different products they make. It was the innovation side. And first talking with them, and I actually got to take a tour of the facility before I worked there. And the kind of motto that they live by is the science of why. So it's full of a lot of inquisitive people where if we see somebody doing something a certain way or somebody says, this is how we've always done it, we don't just say, okay, we want to find out why. So we'll set up tests on more of like the sciencey side to figure out, well, what happens if we change this a little bit, or if we change that a little bit, what impact does that have? And that's really driven us to some innovations that no one could have really predicted. And it's the culture that they really put out there. Um, we had one of the presidents or CEOs, their desk is still on display over their innovation center that it's called. And he had a rule, this McKnight, and it said 15% of your time at 3M should be spent doing whatever it is that you're interested in. So for myself and Ryan, for example, we work in the automotive side, but we can spend 15% of our time looking into anything that interests us whatsoever, which is amazing. So you get to work with new people, and that sort of cross-functional mindset has really helped innovate products that may have been successful, say, in the dental market, and bring those to the automotive side, where we're all in different industries, all trying to progress, and you may be developing solutions that are really impactful to some other industry that you've never thought of, or they may have a solution to an issue that they have that's very applicable to what you're working on in a body shop, and nobody's ever looked at it from that angle before. So I really like that innovative, collaborative spirit that kind of is behind 3M, and that they continue to let us do. And that's something that'll never change there. And that's amazing. That's one of the most attractive things for me anyway, as to why I chose to actually go work at 3M.
I had read that story and the 15% rule in numerous business books, and all of them talk about innovation and really allowing your people to get outside of their normal daily activities, because I think there's so many positives to it. It helps them maybe become a little bit more refreshed in seeing a different look at something. But I think it's truly the standard of a company practicing what it preaches, right? If growth is important to the company as a whole, and here we are actually investing that 15% of people's time into that innovative side and getting them to reach that creative part of their brain to be able to push themselves to look at things a little bit differently. I think it's such a master class in how to run a business. And I think for a lot of shops that are sitting here listening to this, they might think about that in the context of, how would I ever apply that in my own shop? How would I take what is such a cool idea and be able to implement that when, billable hours are so important to us, and being able to really make sure that we run a profitable shop. And I do think there are so many ways that we could approach this in ways that you can still be productive while also kind of pushing the limits on innovation and really pushing your team to get better in that regard. So I'm curious as to whether you see maybe opportunities for smaller businesses than a 3M to be able to implement some of those strategies.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of always the saying is it takes time to turn a big ship, right? So smaller companies and smaller body shops, they have the advantage of they can pivot very quickly, but they're not going to see those advantages they could gain if they don't take the time to look for them. I think so many times people get set in their ways, and I mean, you look at like I know like on Netflix, all the Formula One stuff is huge now, and if you watch that stuff, it's a good way to think of running your shop. They don't build a race car and now they're done, right? They're always looking for, how can I get a little bit faster? How can I take this corner a little bit quicker? Do I need to re-engineer part of the vehicle to make it a little bit faster? And body shops, if they look at their own businesses that same way, they can really get up to speed quickly, because it's tough out there right now for a body shop owner. You either have to innovate, upgrade your shop to be competitive with an MSO, or you have to upgrade yourself in order to be marketable to sell to an MSO. But nobody can sit still anymore, not if they want to be successful. So it's important to always be pushing forward and looking for any advantage that you can. And if it's not a business you're looking to sell, it's something you're looking to innovate and be successful, you have to invest in your people. Whether it's with that 15% of time, let them do things, try new things that could be beneficial to your body shop. Let them travel, visit other body shops. There's some that are very open. There's a lot of body shops now that their main goal is just to progress the industry. So they're very open. They let people tour it. They'll let you get ideas from them. Join whatever performance groups that you can. There's a lot of amazing ones out there now. And they're very open with their data and their processes and what they do, what works and what doesn't. So you get all these sort of brilliant minds and innovative people together from all over the country in one location. And in 3 days, you can see somebody completely come up with new ideas for new processes to try in their body shop. So take advantage of that stuff. I mean, it's out there. If you're not using it, you're just, I don't want to say being ignorant, but you're not setting yourself up to be as successful as you definitely could be.
Yeah, and there's so much we can learn in businesses, and even for you technicians that are out there listening, if you're able to point out something that might be an inefficiency in the shop, you'll probably be rewarded for that by asking you to do more of that, right? And I think the more you can really solve problems and maybe do it in a way that hasn't traditionally been done, I think the more you can kind of set yourself up to be seen in a unique light. And for the shops that are out there listening, I think what Jason was saying there is so spot on. If you are acting innovative, if you're doing things that maybe other shops don't do, I think you can document that. You can create that with some great social media content to shine a light on your shop. But then I think technicians or just people working in the shop in general will look at that and say, okay, we're pushing the limits on some things. We're trying some things. We're doing some things a little bit differently. And, if you've got a staff that's been there forever, they might resist that at first until you start to kind of prove that by doing this, we were able to make your job easier, better, safer, cleaner. And if you just kind of stay stagnant, that's where you fall into that trap of, I feel like I'm just going to my bay every day and doing my job and putting my time in and leaving. And you miss out on that excitement that you can create by innovating.
Yeah, if you're not excited to go to your job, then you're doing something wrong, in my opinion. It's to have the freedom to innovate is going to motivate you to come back and try more things. And especially as a shop owner, like you said, if they're looking to kind of transition into that mindset, the biggest thing is to be open with your technicians and listen to their ideas. They're not all going to be good. Some ideas are going to be bad. I have bad ideas all the time. And smarter people than me at 3M will go, well, have you ever thought about this? And I'm like, ooh, yep, my
Yeah, you're
idea is
right.
garbage. Yeah, yep. But it has to be okay. It has to be an okay environment to fail in. And that was never really the case in body shops when you and I were coming up. It was a proving ground. You went there, you made your mistakes, and you got pretty beat up for it. It was a grind to get through. It was almost treated more like boot camp, where you had to fight for your spot and work your way up. And that doesn't need to be that way anymore. We need to be working with people, not trying to get them to make the cut, but help them make the cut. If you see them make mistakes, help them get better instead of just punishing them and sort of crushing their spirit. I like to take the approach of building people up, because not everybody responds to that negative environment. I mean, the ones that do are good. I mean, Ryan, for sure. I mean, he's one of those that came from sort of that hard knocks world in the body shop. And that pressure creates diamonds. That's true. But there's a lot of gold and silver, I would say, that get lost along the way. So if you work from that sort of build up mindset, you'll have a much healthier work environment, and you can start down that innovative path where people can feel more comfortable to share their ideas. Even if most of the time they're wrong, they may have that good one that completely changes the outcome for your body shop and what success looks like for you in the future.
I could not say it any better than you just said it right there. The different approaches, especially to this younger generation coming up, we have to adapt a little bit. And
Mhm.
there are some concerning attrition numbers in our industry where we do get them in and they start working, and then they quickly exit. And a lot of it goes back to what we talked about with what we love to see in an educator, which is being able to meet somebody at their level. I do feel like there's so much we could learn from the education side and how we approach, a mentorship program, or how we approach developing a young person, because in a lot of ways it's different, and it's different by person. I think
Mhm.
in some cases we we just put everybody in these categories, these generational categories of, baby boomers, Gen Xers, millennials, and Gen Zers, and we think that they're all going to fit that profile. When in reality, if you just sit down and talk with them a little bit, you'll learn about them, and maybe they are really interested in the latest technologies. Okay, well, here's some cool resources for you to learn about these technologies. Or maybe I've seen a lot of shops where they've invested in some very expensive tools that collect dust on the shelf because nobody knows how to use them. And so
Right.
maybe you allow that person to take some time to use that tool and try to figure it out, and knowing that maybe they are going to make a mistake, but I'm not going to beat them over the head with it. I'm going to encourage them to keep doing that. And that's just a different approach than when we were raised in this industry.
Yeah, and there's so many companies even outside of 3M that are offering training to technicians, and it's free, especially from equipment manufacturers. Like you said, those expensive pieces of equipment that maybe they're told for an OEM certification or for some other reason they have to buy this equipment to stay current, but then nobody really learns how to use it. It's why would you spend $60,000 on a piece of equipment and not spend $2,000 to send somebody across the country to really learn how to use it? So yeah, it's important to invest in your people and stay open. Like we said, mentally, we have to keep in mind that, I mean, the younger technicians that are coming into shops now, when they were kids, if no matter what they did, they got a participation trophy for it, right? They were they were commended for just trying, and so that's the way that they learned, and it's whether you agree with that philosophy or not, it's how their mind is ingrained now. So if you don't do something similar, the way they react to that is typically going to be negative, or they're going to change careers completely and just get out of the industry. So if things change, we have to adapt with them. We can't be set in our ways, even though we came up differently. We have to always adapt in order to have a successful business or a successful industry.
How do you see the rapid changing of technology impacting our ability to find new talent to come into the industry? We talked about it a little bit in terms of that there are some very attractive pieces to a young person in a lot of the evolution that a company such as 3M really pushes. Do you see that playing a positive or negative role in this next generation of people? I'm assuming positive, but there probably are some negatives in that if we don't fully comprehend it ourselves, it's going to be hard to sell it. Does that have an impact on kind of our future workforce?
Yeah, I would definitely say it's a little bit of both. So for younger people coming into the industry, it couldn't be better. For people that have been in the industry a while, there's going to be some downsides. There's stuff you're going to have to be uncomfortable with and try to learn that maybe you haven't before. Where technicians that have been in the industry for 20 or 30 years, it's you kind of learn that base set of knowledge, and you can, maybe not the right word, but kind of coast. It's you have that base set of skills where now, if you're not always learning and adapting, the future is going to be a little bit tougher. The types of vehicles and the types of repairs you're going to be able to do safely and efficiently are going to slowly decrease. So it's going to force some of those people to step outside of the box and learn a little bit more. But overall, I mean, I think it's a major positive. We see it over and over again. I mean, when ADAS systems were first coming out for body shops, it was looked at as this is a huge negative. It's so expensive. Every vehicle that's in an accident is just going to get totaled. Or it's we're not going to be able to even work on the vehicles. They're going to have to go to a special facility. But a lot of the trends we've seen are kind of the opposite. It's sure a lot of cars get totaled, but these ADAS systems are slowing vehicles down to the point where they're not necessarily avoiding collisions, but the collisions are smaller. So we end up with more vehicles that we can work on, and our work orders are going up and up and up. So it's front end repair now. Well, we could just use work orders though. As of February of this year, nationwide, the average work order is up to $4,600. Significantly higher than it was when I started in the industry. I think even maybe 4 or 5 years ago, it was around $3,000 was the average work order. So as a body shop, I mean, if we're maintaining or targeting sort of that 40% gross profit, as that work order continues to get more expensive and the vehicles are more expensive to work on, ultimately we should be making more money. As long as we learn the business side, keep an eye on our margins, we're just going to be more and more profitable. So it's important to learn on the office side as well. We have a really smart guy in our team, John Ashman. He piloted his first front office training course a few weeks ago for that specific reason. We start with a work order, we go through all the repair processes, so estimators actually get hands-on painting, doing body repairs, sectioning frame pieces, so they see what it takes to actually do those, so they can write a higher quality estimate. So they know why we need weld-through primer, why we need to choose the right adhesive, how much adhesive we're using, and how to bill for it. So ultimately, we know how to have those discussions with insurance companies to get more money back to our body shop. And I think that's something that's overlooked a lot in our industry today. Is it's the insurance company is our enemy. They're trying to take everything away, but we need to understand that insurance adjuster that's walking into our door, they have a job too, and they're expected to perform. And it's not always that they can't just pay us for stuff. It's they need to justify why they're paying us for stuff, or they're going to lose their job. So we have to learn to be nice to those people, educate them, and show them why we need to do certain things to do a safe quality repair, meet OEM requirements for the repair, and show them why we need the supplies that we're using for that repair in order for them to be able to pay us for it. They have to make a note in their little reports of every single concession they give up and why they're paying for stuff. If we don't give them the answer to type into that report, they are not going to keep their job very long, and their boss is going to be very angry. So work with them, not against them. They're not all great, but there's a lot of front office people that aren't great either, and they're angry all the time. So find common ground and help each other, and the whole industry just gets a little bit better.
That is great advice. And, I think even that side ties back to the technical aptitude as well, and being able to write a story because you truly comprehend and understand what story that you're writing. And all of this really ties together in ways that I feel like we can help make the industry a better place. And our conversation today has taught me so much. I am very, very grateful that you took the time to sit down with me and talk through a lot of this with me. And congrats on your new role. I look forward to touching base with you in the future to kind of learn more about how the other countries are doing things. And as you learn more and more about it, I think it would be a great conversation to have you back on to chat about.
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime. This has been fun. It's anytime I can carve out even an hour in a day to talk to other industry people and sort of reignite that passion that I think we all have deep down is always worth the time. And I'm always happy to come back on and talk about what I'm going to learn in the next year. I'm sure it's going to be a lot. So I'll be excited to share that information with anyone who wants to listen.
Well, our listeners will have to give us feedback on which podcast they liked more, Ryan's or Jason's, right?
Yeah.
We'll have, I'm sure, some bragging rights one way or the other here, but you both were fantastic. I can't tell you how big of a fan I am of, I really can't explain how big of a fan I am of 3M as a whole. And talking with you guys and getting to know you guys has reinforced that even more. So genuinely appreciate everything you guys are doing, not only for 3M, but for the industry as a whole. We really, really appreciate everything.
Thanks. Yeah, happy to be a part of it.
That wraps up another episode of Beyond the Wrench. If you liked this episode, please show your support by rating and following the podcast. You can also watch the video interviews on WrenchWay's YouTube channel. Speaking of WrenchWay, did you know Beyond the Wrench is managed and produced by the WrenchWay team? WrenchWay is an online community dedicated to promoting and improving automotive and diesel careers. We help technicians find the best shops to work at, and we also help auto, diesel, and CTE instructors get more support from local industry. You can learn more by visiting wrenchway.com.